Kenny and Nancy will let you know when it's time to unmute. Whoops, cancel that. Drop that down there. And we doing the set aside prayer? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, I've got it ready to pop up in screen share. So, all right, Trish, I'll let you go ahead and kick it off.
Okay. So I'm going to hit record. For our readers, please speak slowly and be close to your microphone. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to our bi-monthly Foundations meeting of the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. We are glad you're all here. My name is Trish, and I am an alcoholic.
Let's open this meeting with the set aside prayer. And good evening, family. Whoops, I just clicked on the wrong prayer. My name is Jamie, and I am a grateful recovered alcoholic. And let me just continue to play with all the buttons here for a second till I click on the right one. Here we go. It's on your screen in front of you. Set aside prayer. God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself. The 12 steps, the big book, the meetings, my disease. But most especially, God, please set aside everything I think I know about you, so that I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please let me see the truth. And Trish, I was thinking, just for grinsies tonight, you want to do the 1940s?
We could.
Can you pull it up, or you want me? I've got it right here, if not.
I've got it right here.
Okay, see, we have paperwork at a finger's touch. This is an old school preamble.
Also known as the Baltimore Preamble in some circles.
Yes, or the Texas preamble in other circles.
Yes. So, the Oath Preamble from the 1940s. We are gathered here because we are faced with the fact that we are powerless over alcohol and unable to do anything about it without the help of a power greater than ourselves. We feel that each person's religious views, if any, are his own affair. The simple purpose of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is to show what may be done to enlist the aid of a power greater than ourselves, regardless of what our individual conception of that power may be. In order to form a habit depending upon and referring all we do to that power, we must at first apply ourselves with some diligence. By often repeating these acts, they become habitual, and the help rendered becomes natural to us. We have all come to know that as alcoholics, we are suffering from a serious illness for which medicine has no cure. Our condition may be the result of an allergy, which makes us different from other people. It has never been, by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently cured. The only relief we have to offer is absolute abstinence, the second meaning of AA. There are no dues or fees. The only requirement is a desire to stop drinking. Each member squares his debt by helping others to recover. An Alcoholics Anonymous is an alcoholic who, through application and adherence to the AA program, has forsworn the use of any and all alcoholic beverage in any form. The moment he takes so much as one drop of beer, wine, spirits, or any other alcoholic beverage, he automatically loses all status of a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is not interested in sobering up drunks who are not sincere in their desire to remain sober for all time. Not being reformers, we offer our experience only to those who want it. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and on which we join in harmonious action. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our program. Those who not recover are people who will not or simply cannot give themselves to this simple program. Now, you may like this program or you may not, but the fact remains it works. It is our only chance to recover. There is a vast amount of fun in the AA fellowship. Some people might be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity, but just underneath there lies a deadly earnestness and a full realization that we must put first things first, and with each one of us, the first thing is our alcoholic problem. To drink is to die. Faith must work 24 hours a day in and through us, or we perish. In order to set our tone for this meeting, I ask that we bow our heads in a few moments of silent prayer and meditation. I wish to remind you that whatever is said at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and as of up to this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, it is suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA book. If you don't have a big book, it's time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it, loan it, scatter it, and then learn from it what it means to be an AA.
God, I love that preamble. It's hardcore. Before we move on, I just want to make a quick mention. For those of you who have never been to a Foundations meeting before, this is a journey through the 12 steps, focusing primarily on step 1. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to take a little journey through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're going to hopscotch through some different pages. Kenny and Nancy are going to do some reading for us. We have a lot of fun with this. We're going to talk a little bit about the history and some of the things that have happened in Alcoholics Anonymous. It takes us about 45 minutes to run through this script, and then we will be open for comments, questions, experience on it. Hi, Art. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. And
I'll be in and out of the picture because I'm preparing my dinner.
That's fine. And that being said, we will go ahead and continue on. Lewisburg Primary Purpose Group Mission Statement. To carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous through our group, to carry the message of the Big Book to treated and untreated alcoholics, to help them find the spiritual solution outlined in our basic text and join the first 100 and become recovered. There is no cure for alcoholism, but we can become recovered with the AA Big Book and 1940 Styles Big Book sponsorship. That is the purpose of this group. May you join us on the road of happy destiny.
And from the preface, because this book has become the basic text for our society and has helped such large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it. Therefore, the first portion of this volume, describing the AA recovery program, has been left largely untouched.
I'm going to do something for the benefit of the folks who were here for the first time tonight, Trish, and do a quick screen share. Folks, Trish and I have a script that looks like this. You guys aren't going to see it, but this is what we're working off. It's the material that we're working from, and it's what we will be directing others to read from, and so on. So, just so you know that we're not pulling rabbits out of our hat here, those furry little creatures. We want them to know what alcoholism is, what the solution is, and how to take the action that is necessary to avoid death or insanity by drinking. For example, how to get from the problem to the solution.
Now, going to the foreword to the first edition, first published in 1939, and was introduced by stating, and Nancy, could you please go to the first page of the foreword of the first edition and read the whole first paragraph? And you are muted.
You'll have to unmute too, Nancy.
I don't know what I have, but is it because this book has become, or do I start at I got a fourth edition, sorry.
It's okay. It'll have the foreword to the first edition right after the preface.
Oh, okay, Okay, gotcha. Okay, hi everyone, I'm Nancy, an alcoholic. Okay, I got it. The first edition appeared in April 1939, and in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation.
Wrong one. Are you on the forward to the first edition or the second edition?
Page XIII.
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
Trish,
Gotcha.
we need to do some edits on this and put page numbers in.
I got it. I found it.
And
Forward to the first edition.
there you go.
Yes.
I told you. Okay. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women. Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. For them, we hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further will be necessary. We think this account of our experience will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person, and besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantage for all. It is important that we remain anonymous because we are too few to present to handle the overwhelming number of personal appeals which may result from this publication.
And stop there. Thank you. And can you reread just the first line, please? We of Alcoholics Anonymous, that sentence.
We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body.
Thank you. That first sentence tells us who authored the basic text for Alcoholics Anonymous.
And what we're doing here, folks, is we're dissecting the paragraph. Kenny, could you read the second line, please?
Second line.
Yeah, to show others.
Precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book.
Thank you. The second sentence, nope, that's it. The second sentence tells us why they went to the trouble to publish the basic text.
And Nancy, read the third line, please.
For them, we hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further author will be necessary.
Authentication does not roll off the tongue well tonight.
No. Okay.
The third sentence suggests the big book is all we will ever need to be successful in sobriety.
Kenny, could you please read the fourth and fifth lines, please?
We think this account of our experience will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend the alcoholic is a very sick person.
Thank you. The fourth and fifth sentences tell us that the big book is also for those that care about us.
And Nancy, the sixth line, please.
It is important that we remain anonymous.
And besides. Back up one.
And besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all.
Thank you. That sixth sentence is supported by the fact that the big book has given birth to over 200 anonymous fellowships that have nothing to do with drinking.
So some of you might have a third edition with you tonight. Some of you may have a fourth edition. So our Roman numeral pages are given for the fourth edition, but if you're in a third edition, it will just be one page behind the page number that we give you. So just flip one page back. It'll be one page earlier. So from page XIV, the only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. Traditions 3 and 5. We have lost our understanding of honest by the time we decide to come to AA. so that the requirement has been eliminated. But if a person is serious about living sober, they had better have an honest desire to stop drinking and be willing to follow the directions.
The foreword to the second edition gives a historical account of the first 20 years of our history, how Bill found Dr. Bob, how they got busy looking for other alcoholics to try to help, how their success attracted the attention of some of our leading citizens, how we received some very favorable publicity, Jack Alexander's article, how the onslaught of new prospects forced Bill to develop the traditions. And then we hammer out the statement on page XX.
50% never took another drink. Half of those who did returned and found permanent sobriety. So 75% plus who had sponsors and followed the clear-cut directions in the big book, were successful in sobriety. It's also worth a mention that at this time the Cleveland groups were running at a 92% success rate due to using big book sponsorship.
Then Bill published the 12 and 12 in 1953, and by 1965 our success rate had dropped to 50%. Unfortunately, many newcomers are encouraged to try to use the 12 and 12 as their source of directions. Bill W. was the principal author of the Big Book and the sole author of the 12 and 12. On page 17 of the 12 and 12, Bill stated, "The Big Book was and still is the basic text for Alcoholics Anonymous."
And guess what, folks? All these years later, the 12 and 12 still says that, too. They haven't changed it, amazingly enough. Then in the late 60s, we started discussion participation meetings that failed to stick with our singleness of purpose, so that by 1980 we had dropped to 33%, the result of which we started ignoring the practice of focusing on our solution, and we drifted into group therapy. For recent years, our success rate has decreased to what appears to be less than 5% for those finding as much as 5 years of sobriety.
While there has been a dramatic change in our fellowship, the program has remained unchanged. Consequently, the fourth edition reads the same as the first edition.
And I believe it's Kenny's turn. Kenny, would you please flip to page 30? Everyone else can flip to page 30 as well. The middle paragraph, sir, it will be 2 sentences, starting with, "We learned we had to."
Middle paragraph. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. This is the most, this is the innermost, this is the first step in recovery.
Thank
The
you.
delusion.
Nope, that's it right there. Thank you. In our heart of hearts, we must know that we are victims of a killer disease before we can begin recovery.
And returning to the doctor's opinion, and I'll give you a minute to get there, going to page XXVII, in the first two paragraphs, the doctor writes, Nancy, if you could read the 2 paragraphs starting with the subject and ending with drug addiction.
Okay. The subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcohol addiction. Keep going.
Keep going.
I saw this after many years' experience as medical director of one of the oldest hospitals treating alcoholic and drug addiction.
Thank you.
There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction.
Okay. Thank you.
We identify who Dr. Silkworth was and how he wound up at Towns Hospital, how his opinion opened the door for recovery. Until we understand a problem, we cannot find a solution. I use an example of walking out to my car, putting the key in the ignition, and the damn thing won't start. Problem. I can sit on my butt and talk about the car not starting until hell freezes over, but that will get me nowhere. I look under the hood and I see the battery cable is corroded. I know what the problem is, so the solution becomes very evident. I need a new battery cable, but that doesn't solve the problem. I still must take the action necessary to obtain a new battery cable, replace the bad one. Now I'm on my way. Understand the problem, know what the solution is, then take the action to make the solution a reality.
From the first paragraph on page XXVIII, we present the allergy which makes us powerless over alcohol. And Kenny, could you read that first sentence starting with "we believe"?
Give them the page number again, Trish.
I was about to. XXVIII.
XXVIII. 3 eyes.
3 eyes.
Okay. Where we at? We believe.
We believe that
We
first.
believe. And so just a few years ago that the action of alcohol on the chronic alcoholic is a manifestation of an allergy. That the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker.
Thank you. The phenomenon of craving, which is the manifestation of the allergy.
And Nancy, the last paragraph on page XXVIII, same page, is where we find the initial information regarding the unmanageability. The alcoholic mind cannot distinguish the truth from the false. Would you read the entire paragraph, please, starting with men and women?
Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented. Unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks which others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope for his recovery.
Thank you. We carefully dissect the whole paragraph. First, what is the effect alcoholic men and women get from drinking alcohol?
Why is it so important that we have this spiritual event occur in our lives? Well, Dr. Silkworth said, we drink essentially because we like the effect produced by alcohol. What is the effect an alcoholic gets from drinking? When we alcoholics had a few drinks, we were amazed at the change in the way we thought and the way we felt. A few drinks produced an entire psychic change.
Oh, now it's time for a little fun. Let's turn to page 83 in the big book and examine the 9-step promises. We're going to do this a little differently tonight. We're going to take the... what, Kenny?
Page 83.
Yes, page 83. And we're gonna segue back and forth between each promise. However, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put something in front of each promise as we say it. And here's what we're gonna say before we say each promise. We're gonna say, when I had a few drinks. So we're gonna read it in the first person in the past tense. For example, And this whole line makes no sense, Trish. We got to change it. When I had a few drinks, I was painstaking about the beginning of my drinking, and I was amazed before I was halfway through. So that's the example.
Now we are on Penny.
Yeah.
So Kenny, you would that was an example. You would get that first promise. So when I had a few drinks, read the first
When I
promise.
had a few drinks, if I were painstaking about this phase of our development, we are amazed before we are halfway through. Continue.
Nope.
Get the next one.
Who's freezing?
Read the next one, Kenny. When I had a few drinks, I knew.
When I had a few drinks, we are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness.
But did you?
I sure did. Nancy, you get the next one.
Okay, when I had a few drinks, we will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it.
I love this one. Did you ever come out of a blackout in a place you hadn't planned on visiting, with people you hadn't planned on being with, and learned you had done some things you wish you hadn't done? Because of the guilt and remorse, it was to be a secret, and then go to a bar, have a few drinks, and tell some poor stranger the whole story.
I certainly did. Kenny, you're up.
When I had a few drinks, we will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace.
Did you too find that serenity and peace of mind replaced the turmoil with a few drinks?
Oh, yeah.
In the beginning,
Yep. Nancy?
You're muted, Nancy. There you go.
When I had a few drinks, no matter how far down the scale I had gone, I saw how my experience could benefit others.
How willing were you to share your life story with some poor drunk who just had a really bad experience?
I love to talk about how bad my life was.
You're up, Kenny.
when I had a few drinks, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear.
With a few drinks, did you feel that you just might really have a purpose in this world? And feel sorry for those critters that didn't have what you had? Although you just weren't too sure what it was that you had?
Almost every time.
Nancy?
When I had a few drinks, I lost interest in selfish things and gained interest in my fellows.
Did a few drinks make you a little more interested in people, especially of the opposite sex?
Can I buy you a drink, honey?
Kenny, you're up.
When I had a few drinks, self-seeking will slip away.
Did a few drinks make you somewhat generous?
Drinks for everyone! Nancy?
When I had a few drinks, my whole attitude and outlook upon life changed.
Did a few drinks take you from a gray, gloomy day to one that was bright and hopeful?
From a shade of brown to rosy pink with just a couple.
And Kenny?
When I had a few drinks, fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us.
Did you enjoy being... Whoops, that's yours, Trish. I'm sorry.
Did you enjoy being in the company of people sober?
Leave me alone.
Did a few drinks diminish your concern for your financial difficulties?
How am I going to pay these bills? I think I better have a couple of drinks to figure it out.
Nancy?
When I had a few drinks, I intuitively knew how to handle situations which used to baffle me.
Did you too find that you were able to think much more clearly and wisely with a few drinks?
You bet. I had answers to questions that hadn't even been asked.
The unmanageability is clearly presented in the last sentence of that paragraph.
I will suddenly realize that booze is doing for me what I could not do for myself.
From the article Ways to Stop Drinking, you can get some ideas of how we apply the information Dr. Silkworth proposed.
The newcomer is also reminded that they need to be mindful of over-the-counter meds such as cough syrup, mouthwash, flavor extracts, etc., and that their healthcare providers should know that they're alcoholics, so the professionals will be mindful of what they prescribe. We emphasize that they themselves are responsible for their sobriety, so be honest with those who have a need to know. We should also all be aware of supplements and the ingredients listed. Just because it says healthy doesn't mean it's safe for us. Some of the ingredients may trigger the craving. Some supplements do contain alcohol as a soluble base. No matter how long we've been sober, alcohol in any form can be deadly.
We have now helped the newcomer to understand the problem. We may now breeze through Bill's story by looking at the events that describe the progression of alcoholism in his life. And if you lovely folks would turn to page 2, and Nancy, we're going to start with you. It will be in the middle of the first paragraph, approximately 10 lines down. It will be one sentence, and it will start with, though my drinking was not.
Though my drinking was not yet continuous, it disturbed my wife.
Lois is on his ass about his drinking.
In the bottom of page 3, Kenny, the last complete sentence starting with I began.
Bottom of page 3, the last sentence. I began. I don't see that.
I began to be.
I don't see that. In the last sentence, I don't see that. In 1929, I contracted gold fever.
You're on page 3?
Oh, the end of that paragraph, before you turn the page. The last 3 words are golf permitted drinking. You want the sentence before that.
Gold fever, okay. Liquor caught up with me much faster than I came up behind Walter.
The next sentence.
I began to be jittery in the morning.
There you go.
There you go.
Bill was beginning to be jittery in the morning.
Okay, let's turn to page 5. And when we get there, Nancy, it will be the first sentence. Liquor ceased.
Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity.
Thank you. Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. He's lying about his drinking, hiding bottles, etc.
And Kenny, still on page 5, the 3rd paragraph, 4 sentences starting with, then I got.
Then I got a promising business opportunity. Stock was at a low point in 1932, and I somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profit. Then I went on a prodigious bender, and the chance vanished.
Thank you. Bill lost an opportunity to make some money because he drank.
And Nancy, still page 5, 4th paragraph, 4 sentences starting with I woke up.
I woke up This had to be stopped. I saw I could not take so much as one drink. I was through forever.
Thank you. He made up his mind to never touch another drop.
And Kenny, wrapping up page 5, the 5th paragraph, 3 sentences starting with shortly afterward.
Shortly afterward, I came home drunk. There had been no fight. Where had my high resolve? Where had been my high resolve?
Thank
I
you.
simply
Bill returned home drunk.
And let's move on to page 7. And Nancy, it will be page 7, end of the first full paragraph, 1 sentence. Best of all, I met.
Best of all, I met a kind doctor who explained that though certainly selfish and foolish, I had been seriously ill, bodily and mentally.
Thank you. Bill met Dr. Silkworth and learned what was wrong with him.
And Kenny, flipping to page 8, the first full paragraph, 4 sentences starting with the word quicksand.
page 8, first paragraph.
Starting with the second sentence.
What would I would not give to make amends? But that was over now? No, that's not it.
No, quicksand stretched.
Okay. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master.
Thank you. Bill surrendered to the problem. Step 1.
We use the next paragraph to exemplify the simplicity of our program. Nancy, first sentence. Trembling, I stepped.
What page?
Should
Eight.
it should be going into page.
Oh, okay, I got it. Trembling, I stepped from the hospital, a broken man.
Thank you. And the last sentence, Nancy, also, I was to know.
I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes.
A wonderful life is a result of having taken the action Ebby prescribed for him.
And Kenny, turning to page 10, and you're going to read the last paragraph on page 10 and the first paragraph on page 11, starting with when they talked and ending at the rest I disregarded.
When they talked of God personal to me, who was love, superhuman strength, and direction, I became irritated, and my mind snapped shut against such a theory. To Christ I conceded the certainty of a great man, not too closely followed by those who claim them. His moral teachings most excellent. For myself, I adopted those which seemed convenient and not too difficult, and the rest I disregarded.
Thank you. Bill's rebellion at the idea of a spiritual solution, identifying him as a hard-nosed agnostic.
And let's flip to page 12, and it will be 2 sentences. And Nancy, it will start with, my friend suggested.
My friend suggested what then seemed a novel idea. He said, why don't you choose your own conception of God?
The freedom and responsibility we are given to develop an idea of God that we can begin to bet our life on.
We then explained the simplicity of step 2 by the fact that Bill saw his old drinking buddy who was supposedly in the nut house for alcoholic insanity, sober. Both of them had been powerless over alcohol, but Ebby was sober and Bill was going to die. Ebby had found the power that Bill was unaware of. Ebby gave Bill hope, the beginning of coming to believe. From that hope, Bill finally became willing to try Ebby's plan of action. Again, the idea of step 2.
And let's go to page 13. And I think it's Kenny's turn. It will be the first paragraph, first sentence. I was separated.
I can hear you.
First paragraph. First paragraph, one sentence. I was separated. Page 13.
At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time.
Thank you.
Treatment seemed
No,
wise for...
That's it, Kenny. Just the one sentence. Entering Towns Hospital on December 11th, 1934, going into DT's, taking step 3 on the 3rd day of his sobriety. Ebby visiting Bill in the hospital on the 4th and 5th days to help Bill take the action Ebby had learned to apply in his life, the result of which was a spiritual experience. Bill left the hospital on December 18th, 1934, at the end of 7 days, and lived 36 years without taking another drink. We are here because of the action that Bill took, not the meetings he attended.
We now
Give me a seat
identify...
for a moment.
What, Kenny? We now identify the meaning of step 1. Powerless because of the allergy. Unmanageability due to the mind that cannot remember that we have the allergy. It can only remember the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks.
Relieving that feeling of restlessness, irritability, and discontentedness.
Therefore, we are powerless over our body and powerless over our mind where alcohol is concerned. We are screwed.
Nancy, could you please turn to page 24? It'll be in the middle of the page in the paragraph, second paragraph. Squiggly writing, please. It's in italics. Starting with the fact is.
I got it. Okay, the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice to drink.
Keep going.
Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent.
Keep going.
We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink.
Thank you.
And Kenny, flipping to page 43. I'll give you a minute to get there.
Page 43.
43.
I told you guys it'd be a hopscotch.
Okay, where?
Okay, the last paragraph starting with once more, and read the whole paragraph.
Once more, the alcoholic at certain time has no effective mental defense against the first drink, except in a few rare cases. Neither he nor any other human being can provide such defense. His defense must come from a higher power.
From the hope of hearing a recovered alcoholic tell their story of what they were like, what happened, and what they are like now, or reading the 44 personal stories in the Big Book, is the beginning of step 2. If lack of power is the problem, then a power greater than ourselves must be the solution. And we see that the recovered alcoholic has found that power. It takes no great mind to see that if lack of power or powerlessness is my problem, then a power greater than myself must be the solution. Once I can see that, I am faced with a simple decision. Am I or am I not willing to follow the clear-cut directions for recovery? But I need someone who knows how to do this.
So the simplicity of step 3 is to ask the recovered alcoholic, will you be my sponsor? And be willing to do precisely what the sponsor tells you to do.
That's why I called on the guy in the camera with the beard there. He's supposed to be laughing, but he's not. He's ignoring me. To determine if you have made a good choice in sponsors, it is pretty easy to tell. If they tell you to open your big book to page XI and study to page 43, that is a good start. These 51 pages will get you ready to see if you are ready to move on. Look at the first sentence on page 44. Give them time to turn to 44, Trish, just to follow along.
In the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic.
It tells us why it is so important to be thorough in your study to this point. From this study, we can separate the alcoholic from the non-alcoholic, which is so vital to the success of your group and AA as a whole.
Now, take the test. If, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely,
how many of you have promised you'd never do it again? It appears that you failed to manage the decision, so your life is unmanageable where alcohol is concerned.
or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take.
How many of you cannot start drinking without getting drunk? It would appear that you too are powerless over alcohol. Step 1.
If that is the case, you may be suffering from an illness.
Chronic alcoholism of the hopeless variety.
Which only a spiritual experience will conquer.
How many meetings must you attend to have this spiritual experience, or how many steps must you take to have this blessed promise become a reality in your life?
Page 44 through page 57 will open the door for you to be able to consider your own conception of the God of your understanding.
Page 58 answers that stupid comment that we hear too often in meetings. I don't know how it works, man. In the first sentence tells us how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has carefully followed the clear-cut directions in the big book.
The program of Alcoholics Anonymous is a spiritual program. On page 59, we will find the first of several prayers, one or more for each and every step from step 3 through step 12, which reminds us that the God of our understanding is the source of our recovery. We learn to invite him to be the solution to all our problems.
You guys are done reading, by the way. Thank you. On page 62, we are told what our real problem is: selfishness and self-centeredness. But we can never see it without some method of revealing the truth to us. So we make a decision to do precisely what our sponsor tells us to do, and we announce that decision in the prayer presented on page 63.
One of the beautiful things about the Big Book is that it will tell us when to take a step, how to take the step, what the results or promises of having taken the step will be, and provides us with the prayers that make certain we are inviting the God of our understanding to be very involved in our recovery.
The last sentence on page 63 tells us that we now have to get busy and take the rest of the steps.
Steps 4 and 5 are diagnostic steps. to learn that if what they told us on page 62
selfishness and self-centeredness
is true for us. The clear-cut directions for step 4 are found on pages 64 through 71, and there are 5 prayers for step 4.
On page 75, we find the clear-cut directions for step 5 and 2 fifth step prayers.
On page 76, we find the direction for step 6, which is nothing more than a commitment to God that we will become students and practitioners of the rest of the Big Book. And there we will find the 6th step prayer.
On page 76, we find the 7th step prayer, which is to be prayed after we have told God we are going to do our part. Now please do your part by making me different. This prayer is the completion of the prayer that we started on page 63.
On page 76, we will be most pleased to learn that if we have carefully followed the directions in taking step 4, that step 8 is all but a done deal.
From page 76 to page 83 are the directions for taking step 9, and 4 ninth step prayers are there.
Having carefully followed the path the first 100 laid down for us, we now have had a spiritual awakening or experience and have joined the first 100 as recovered alcoholics. The 9-step promises describe that blessed event.
On page 64, we take the first action to recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. By the time we get to page 83, we have recovered. We have joined the first 100. We have been given the power that we lack to survive alcoholism. Carefully following the clear-cut directions outlined in just 20 pages of our basic text produces the miracle of recovery.
We are now to start our spiritual growth, and that occurs in steps 10, 11, and 12.
The clear-cut directions for step 10 are contained in the paragraph on page 84, beginning with we continued.
A running start to learn how to communicate with the God of your understanding is very adequately covered on pages 86, 87, and 88.
And now that we have received the power, it is our primary purpose to pass that on to the next newcomer God puts in our life. The clear-cut directions for sponsorship are contained in chapter 7. But you won't find the 12-step prayer until you have reached the last page of the basic text. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick.
There you have it, so utterly simple, yet so garbled in our meetings. I challenge you to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. The simplest guide that I follow in working with others is, if it isn't in the Big Book, they don't need to be exposed to it.
I love that I always get to close this with this passage. If you are encouraged to wait until you have a better understanding of what our program is about, I have one question for you. Well, how well did you like sex before you tried it? Well, you won't know a damn thing about recovery either until you have taken the action of taking the steps precisely as they were given to us. And that is the Foundations meeting, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for joining us. And now the floor is open for questions, comments, observations, experience. If there's something you would like us to go back and cover, we will be more than happy to do that.
And seeing Kenny.
Oh, I gotta say something. That was great. I loved that. I love the way, of course, and this is the first time I've gone through this way, and the way that it was presented of everything that booze did to us, and then how after coming into recovery that we can get the same better results by finding a higher power and being freed of the alcohol obsession, and to have a program of action that works better than the alcohol did. It's more long lasting. Of course, this is after working the steps, but there's hope. The hope of recovery and sobriety is 100% better than what alcohol gave me. And the ability to face reality without picking up that drink, because I have an allergy. I have a physical, mental, and spiritual allergy to alcohol, and if I pick up one drink, I'm gonna get drunk, and all bets are off. And that's not my fault that I have this allergy, but it is my responsibility of what I do with it after I surrender to my higher power and I get exposed to recovery. So I just like the way it differentiated between drunkenness and sobriety, and that it's a disease of the mind, body, and spirit, and I have an allergy, and that there's a solution. And I guess that's what I took out of tonight's reading. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you for your participation. Good to see you.
You made it fun, Jamie.
I love this meeting. I absolutely love this meeting. It is a good presentation of, and it's a good hopscotch and journey through the book. And I also love that every now and then we will take and open it up with that old 1940s preamble. And there are people who in today's world wouldn't appreciate that. But we are dealing with a deadly, deadly disease. And, you know, one thing that I understand and I believe for me, if I let one sip of alcohol pass through my lips, that is a slip. I need to change my sobriety date. One of the other things that we have in there where we make it clear to the newcomer is about over-the-counter medications, talking to our doctors, so on and so forth. I think that applies to old-timers as well. We oftentimes forget that maybe if we pick up a bottle of something that's over the counter in the store and we can't pronounce what the names are, maybe we ought to Google it or ask the pharmacist what it contains, because it might be dangerous for us. I was in a meeting last week and people were talking about talking to their doctors, and there's an old timer and he's like, my experience with that has been really, really bad. And I don't know why his experience with that is bad, but here's what I know. I have fully disclosed that I'm an alcoholic in recovery, my sobriety date, my time, that I'm active in a program of recovery. Those disclosures are all very, very vitally important. And in the last several years, the other things that I do is, while doctors get training in alcoholism. They get about 4 hours worth of training when they go to medical school on alcoholism. So today I take them big books of Alcoholics Anonymous. Whether or not they read them is entirely up to them, but I take them a big book with the doctor's opinion outlined, some other stuff in the big book as well, especially more about alcoholism, dealing with untreated alcoholism and the mental obsession and how that phenomenon of craving, to help give them a better understanding. That in my experience, the doctors that I have taken those books to have read them, and it has been very helpful to them to understanding our disease. So what have I got to lose? $10 by taking them a big book? You know, I've got nothing to lose, and you know what the truth is? It's not so much my life, but it may save another alcoholic's life by giving that doctor a little more information on alcoholism that they never really understood. As far as I'm concerned, regardless of what science has accomplished and knowing about how the neurons fire and all of that stuff, I think Dr. Silkworth was still by far the foremost expert on any of it. But that's just my belief. What do I know? I'm just an alcoholic. Oh, I'm a sober alcoholic. And I couldn't even get a rise out of Art when I said, yeah, that's why I picked him. He wasn't even paying attention. That's when we were.
You might be surprised what I pay attention to.
Oh yeah, I know he would. I know he would. Anybody else? Feel free to chime in, folks. This is a very casual meeting tonight.
I'm Kathy. I'm alcoholic.
Hi, Kathy.
Thanks for doing this, you guys. That was really good. I relate to an awful lot of it for sure. And you know, I remember as a kid sneaking Benylin cough syrup out of the medicine cabinet in the bathroom because I liked it so much. I think that was like I was like 7, 8 years old when I was doing that. Yeah, this is really good. It especially like page 24, where in the italics there, where it talks about the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. And then it reiterates that on the bottom of page 43. It talks about it a few other times as well, like you know, Bill mentions a lot that, you know, suddenly, right? That word comes up, and I could never explain why. Like I could.
Whoa. And poof, she was gone just like that. Whoa, imagine that. It was alcoholic vapor, it just vaporized her. Hopefully she'll be back in a second. Had to throw the humor in there, folks.
Maybe she has a computer like mine that doesn't give her any warning when it's running out of juice.
That's why I keep mine plugged in all the time. I don't ever let any of my battery operated stuff ever get that low.
I used to do that too until I had a battery blow up in one that, because it was plugged in all the time.
Yeah, I don't use my laptop very often, so it is what it is. But my phones, you know, it's because I run the battery down too fast.
I'll go ahead and jump in. I'm Trish. I'm an alcoholic. And I love the hop, skip, and jump that we take through Bill's story. From his jitters in the morning to liquor no longer being a luxury but a necessity, and then finding a way to make some money and going out to drink instead of following up on that, and then realizing I can't do this anymore. I can't take one more drink. I'm done drinking. And the very next page, he's drunk again. There's no fight, no resolve. And then finally met Dr. Silkworth, who explained to him that he was seriously ill, bodily and mentally. I don't know that there were a lot of times that I had chances to make money that I drank and ruined. But there were certainly times that I had big things happening on a day and drinking got in the way, or drinking caused it to not happen. And how many times did I say, I can't do this anymore. I can't drink anymore. I've got to put it down. And then there it was all over again. Whether I was just drinking a couple nips here and there, whether I was getting drunk. How many times did I make that promise to myself, I'm not going to do this again, and I kept doing it. Right out of page, 44? Making that promise, I'm never going to do it again, and breaking that promise within days, if not hours. And then finally meeting somebody who was able to start sharing with me the fact that alcoholism was a disease. It wasn't something for me to control. It wasn't willpower, but it was a disease, bodily, mentally, and spiritually. And that I had to have the God of my understanding. I had to find the God of my understanding in order for me to be able to move on. And then stressing after he was in the hospital and came out that, Bill didn't get sober from meetings that he was going to. Bill got sober because of the work that he did. Because he hit his bottom and he took his steps. And he took the action that was necessary, not just from going to meetings and hanging out in fellowship. And I did that for years. And miserable because of it, until I dove back into the book and got a whole new lease on life, even though I had been not even sober, I had been dry. But then diving back into the book and finding new things in the book that I had never seen before, taking those actions, that's what got me living life again. Not how many meetings was I going to and how many pots of coffee was I brewing. I will pass it back to Kathy since she's come back if she wants to finish up.
Kathy, it's funny. I talked about the alcoholic mist and you just vaporized. Welcome back.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on my phone because I can't even get my computer to load Zoom. So, did everybody disappear or just me?
Just you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I appreciate it talking in the book about being defenseless against the first drink, and I think like that has been my experience even when I was in AA before I found a higher power. But I had people telling me that I was choosing to die and choosing to drink. And I mean, ultimately, there's that choice that happens in the mind, to pick up that drink. But I would try to explain to some of these people who hadn't experienced that after coming to AA that, like, you don't understand what happens in the brain. And I was just met with, significant pushback and pretty much told that, I'm choosing to die, and so I feel relieved to read this or hear this read in the book. And I've been faced lately, like I didn't have a bad day at all today, which is good. Certainly had some. I've been experiencing a lot of anxiety at work lately, and that happened to me again today. But anyways, I got through it. But I was sitting there in this meeting this afternoon, and daily lately, for probably the last 3-4 weeks, the thoughts of drinking or using is coming into my mind, and it happened to me again today while I'm at in this meeting. And next thing I know, I'm like, just all of these thoughts, just like it reads in the book, like suddenly, right? And I mean, we were talking about equity, diversity, and inclusion, and next thing you know, I'm thinking about stopping on my way home from work. Like, it's just, I don't know how I got sidetracked there. It was suddenly, right? And yeah, I guess it's starting to bother me because I think I have a reservation, and anyways, I'm going to my brother's in a couple weeks, and I'm going to be around an awful lot of drinking, and I need to get my I need to get my head in a significantly better place before I get on the plane in 18 days. Yeah, anyways, I need to just say that out loud. It's happening to me daily lately, and literally, I don't like it when it just comes out of the blue there. It's one thing when there were times when I did plan my relapses, but there were certainly times when it suddenly came upon, and next thing I knew, I was drunk before I didn't intend to, right? And so I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about my what's happening in my thoughts and stuff, but it's helpful to read that stuff tonight, so thank you all, and I wish everybody another 24 hours.
Thank you, Kathy. Glad you made it back in. And I'm going to screen share something here because I read it, but I want you guys to see it. Page 13, first paragraph, first sentence. I was separated from alcohol for the last time, entering Towns Hospital on December 11th, 1934, going into DTs, taking step 3 on the 3rd day of his sobriety. Ebby visiting Bill in the hospital on the 4th and 5th days to help Bill take the action Ebby had learned to apply in his life, the result of which was a spiritual experience. Bill left the hospital on December 18th, 1934 at the end of 7 days and lived 36 years without taking another drink. We are here because of the action Bill took, not the meetings he attended. Here's a consideration. If it worked that way for Bill Wilson, why wouldn't it work that way for any one of us? Am I so superhuman powerful that I'm disqualified? You know, I know that left to my own devices, I cannot stay sober by myself. But I also know that left to the spiritual solution, which has very clearly been outlined tonight, I don't ever have to take another drink again if I don't want to. You know, when I went through detox and at 6 days sober, I'm in the same exact position Bill Wilson is in. And they said, we don't have a bed for you. You have to leave. There's some things that Bill Wilson did that I hadn't done yet. He had already taken his 4th step. He had already taken his 5th, 6th, and 7th. I did not. on page 13 of the book, it shows us where then it was 6 steps with the Oxford group, but it in by the time the book's written, it's broken down into 10 steps, and you know we see that happen. But at the end of 6 days, terrified to come back out into the world, I did exactly what they told me to do. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh, and then I did something else that they told me to do when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I got a sponsor, I got a big book, and then I procrastinated on what it tells us at the bottom of page 63 after that 3rd step prayer to get busy with the rest of the program. In fact, I'm going to paraphrase it, but more specifically what it says after step 3, though our decision was a vital and crucial one, it could have little if any permanent lasting effect unless followed at once by a strenuous effort to be free of the things which had been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. And I can remember talking to my sponsor, since he's here tonight, obviously I can't fib to you guys about it. I wouldn't do that anyway. But talking to him and whining and complaining about my life, not wanting to drink, just about life circumstances. And in his wisdom, his words to me were simply this. He didn't co-sign anything. He said, you know, Jamie, you're not getting well any faster by procrastinating on step 4. So I went home, I started working on it that night, I was done with it the next night, and 2 or 3 days later, I'm in his garage taking step 5. Once I get through that, amazing things in my life started changing. Life has still got problems. Art's 45 years sober, Nancy's 40 years sober, Trisha's 38 years sober, I'm 33 years sober. I'll tell you what, people, we're not without problems in our life. We're not without thoughts, feelings, and emotions in our life. But what we do have is we do have this spiritual program that helps us to overcome it all. And you know, I really love this part here where it talks about where was it here? Where in just 20 pages, we have the majority of our program outlined for us. The majority of it. I can't read 20 pages, it's too much! You know how much smut I used to read? That's just the truth. I knew that it'd make somebody laugh. You know, I used to read absolute garbage and fill my mind with nothing but garbage. And today, I fill my life with spiritual material. I don't think about drinking today because I think more about recovery today. I don't think about me today because I think more about you. Granted, it didn't used to be that way. It wasn't that way when I was new. But the sooner I learned it, the better off I was. And that was huge. Here it is. On page 64, we take the first action to recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. By the time we get to page 83, we have recovered. We have joined the first 100. We have been given the power that we lacked to survive alcoholism, carefully following the clear-cut directions outlined in just 20 pages of our basic text. Produces the miracle of recovery. Anybody ever try? Here's a test. You want to try a really cool experiment? Go buy a Duncan Hines cake and buy a Betty Crocker cake. Take them both out of the box, flip them around, get all the ingredients and put them out on the table. Then juggle the packages of cake mix for a while so you don't know which one is which. Throw the directions for the boxes away. Put the stuff in the bowl and put all of the ingredients in one bowl, in one cake mix. Put all the ones for the other bowl in the other cake mix. Here's what's going to happen. If you don't get the Duncan Hines stuff with the ingredients that go with the Duncan Hines and the Betty Crocker that goes with the Betty Crocker, those cakes aren't going to turn out the way that they're supposed to. Why? Because Duncan Hines might call for 3 eggs and a 1/4 cup of water. But Betty Crocker might call for 2 eggs and a 1/2 cup of milk. They might call for a 25-degree cooking temperature. How am I going to bake a successful cake if I don't follow the directions? How am I going to have successful sobriety if I don't follow the suggestions? You know, and I love sponsorship, and sponsorship is great experience. And my sponsor has never said, Jamie, go read this in the book. What he has done is he's paraphrased some stuff in the book and he said, you might read it and find out what it says and experience it for yourself. What he has done is he's given me a pathway, and he has shared his experience that can be reconciled with what the pages are in this book. But he never told me to do anything like, well, you know, Jamie, you need to call that boss up and just tell him he's wrong and he's treating you wrong, and you know, you just need to go tell him to take a hike. He's never told me anything like, yeah, Jamie, you might be in an abusive relationship and you just need to get the hell out of it. What he has told me is he's told me, I can't tell you what to do. Many times his answer has been, the only way that I know how to get from where you are to where you need to be is through prayer. And of course, my answer for a lot of that as well is also pen to paper, because that oftentimes is the way that God talks to me, because it allows me to sort out what the facts are from what my feelings are. See, I make all kinds of decisions based on thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And I make really bad decisions when I do that. But when I make decisions based on the facts, I have a much better chance of survival. And I love here where it talks about step 3. And I use this line all the time. The freedom and responsibility that each one of us is given to find a power that will work for us. Your God doesn't have to look like mine, doesn't have to look like anybody else's in this room. It just needs to be a power that you can accept in your life, that you can talk to. You know, my God gets strapped in the seat next to me all the time, goes with me everywhere I go. My God, that I still don't understand, has become the God of my experience. What a beautiful thing. But none of it, it doesn't matter what step I take. No, I will not be successful in any of the steps if I do not have an effective step one, if I have not conceded to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic. And that's why when I get to page 44 and I ask myself the two questions, it's written in a statement, but I ask myself the two questions in the first person. If when I want to, I cannot stop drinking on my own, I cannot. And if when I'm drinking I have no control over the amount I take, I do not. 23 years of drinking daily proved that to me. Convinced me of it to the point of where it paralyzed me. I am absolutely 100% convinced. For anyone who hasn't read chapter 3 yet, more about alcoholism, it's about two things. It's about untreated alcoholism and the mental obsession. And when we are dry for a period of time, it is physically impossible for the phenomenon of craving to kick in. If I don't put the first drink in me, I can't, it's impossible for the allergy to kick in. But the mental obsession can be there. And I can think about, life just isn't treating me well. Life isn't treating me fair. I'm living in fear of this. I'm living in fear of that. Life isn't going my way. A drink will make it better. Don't need to drink a lot. Just one to take the edge off. Here's what I have to remember. I got to remember that the world's smallest shot glass starts it all. That's the one that gets me. It's not the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 12th. The half pints or the 5ths that come with it, or the 12 packs. It's that first sip of the first one, and I'm done. I'm done. I've talked way too long. Somebody else speak up, please. Kenny, what did you think tonight participating?
I had a lot of identification, especially when you talk about the blackout, when you show the blackout, and the feelings that come behind when you wake up. You'd be like, who is she? You know? I identify with that. I identify with the fact that when I have one, a switch goes off in my head, and what was important is not important anymore. And the only thing that is important is that I get the next one and the next one. It starts suddenly, and I don't, after going through recovery and relapse, I'll find a way to rationalize the next one and the next one down my throat until it doesn't matter anymore. I had other problems other than alcohol, so it made it real hard for me. And Romero, who was my first sponsors told me if the other stuff wasn't around, would alcohol be your sole problem? And I said, yeah. And he said, then you're alcoholic. And that made things simple for me because in the other fellowship I wasn't comfortable. I can't go. I can go make the meetings, but I'm not comfortable there because it's more therapy than it is anything else. And people talk about crazy things. And if I wanted therapy, I got a therapist for that, you know. And so I wasn't never comfortable there. And it was just too much street and rah rah. But in AA, I felt more serene, you know, and I was able to get around people who I didn't think wanted to harm me because I lived in a lot of fear growing up, and that fear caused me to do a lot of things and become a person that I didn't want to be anymore. And in AA, I found out that I'm slowly but surely letting down my guards and starting to become a human being again, you know. Yesterday made 5 years for me, you know, with my anniversary. And I'm kind of like, I'm grateful and everything, but I'm also like, wow, this is uncharted territory for me. Because the last time I ever had 5 years sober, I was dry, you know. I was just getting out of prison, and I picked up that same day, you know, and put it down, and didn't learn anything from the experience. I kept it to myself, you know, and it took a while for me to get some time back to again, and then I went back out again. But things seem different this time around, you know. Uh, I don't. I'm too old now. I turned 61 last month on the 27th, and I don't want to be that old drunk. I don't want to be in Rikers Island again. I don't want to. My mother in her golden years, her platinum years, seeing her youngest son uh, not having me. You know. So life is a lot better. You know. I have a lot of gratitude. Uh, so much so that I was doing too much, and I had to pull back. And I'm just learning how to live because I never learned how to live before, and I get that out of the fellowship, and I get that out of the program on how to live sober, how to live sane, how to rely on a power greater than myself, not only in just keeping me away from the drink, but helping me in thinking and making the right decisions in life so I don't fall back into the idea that a drink will make things better. And things are getting better. I can't complain. Uh, I have my own place. I'm not homeless anymore. I have a source of income. Uh, I have some people who care about me, and I care about some people. And another thing, I got several guys who I'm working with, and they can't seem to get any time together. You know, uh, they'll get like 20 something days, 30 days, and then go back. But I don't judge them. I just keep working with them. You know, when they call me, I talk with them. I give them suggestions. If they take it, cool. If not, I want to try to introduce them into the book. I try to get them to come to our meeting, but you know they're so busy in life they haven't found time to do that yet. But I don't give up on them. But I don't try to ram my sobriety down their throat. I know they have to be willing to find their own. And I talk to William about that a lot, and he helps me out with that. And life is good. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. And Trish has something for you coming up. Congratulations, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're the rhinestone alky.
Yeah,
Congratulations, brother.
Congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah, and it's a joy to have you as part of our group. Yeah, don't get hung up on the people who don't get sober and stay sober. It's all about planting seeds, and I got to remember, Bill Wilson worked with 96 alcoholics, and none of them stayed sober until he found Dr. Bob. So you're doing good, brother. Always a joy to have you. Art, would you like to come in and join us tonight?
I got to go.
See you, brother. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
See you tomorrow. Yeah, everybody have a good night.
Yeah, this particular meeting is one that's very well put together, and it gives you the basics of, exactly how it's titled, Foundations. It tells you what you need to, what has to happen in order to find permanent sobriety. And but then the other thing that has to happen is that now you've done all this work to get to where you understand what you need to do. And it's really important to keep doing it. There's a couple of the steps that talk about continuation. Step 10 actually uses the word continue. Step 12 says we practice these principles in all our affairs, and by inference, it's talking about continuing to work, to continuing to do the things that are outlined in the steps. And I several years ago, it became apparent to me that these steps are not meant to be worked. They're meant to be taken. And that's what it says in chapter 5. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. It's a process. It's a program. It's not a once and done. It continues on. And so we have to continue to take these steps. And then to practice the principles that we've learned through the process of taking steps in all of our affairs. And I'm sure I know that Jamie has heard this before, and I think Trish has too. I don't know about the others, but what I'm going to say.
I don't know, but if I really heard it before, I could tell it for you. But it's a crapshoot, so you're gonna have to remember.
Too many things that you've heard from me that and trying to pick out the one I was thinking of would be pretty rough.
True.
Anyway, this particular study, which comes up once a month,
Every other month,
every other month.
6 times a year.
I think this is the second time that I've sat through it with you guys, and it's a very good introduction for newcomers. Jamie was talking about cake mixes. And I have an analogy that I use, and I know you guys have heard this one too. But, so often we hear people say you need to read the steps and understand what they are. Okay, yeah, that's true. But if that's as far as you go, it's like making a decision that I want a cake for dinner, dessert tonight. So I pull the box of cake mix down out of the cupboard, and I read the directions, and I understand the directions, and I set the cake box on the counter, and go on about my day. Come dinner time for dessert time, and I wonder, well, where's my cake? I read the directions, I understood the directions, where's my cake? The problem is I never followed through with those directions.
That's right.
And the understanding doesn't help me if I don't follow through with the action that's indicated. And so it's the same with the steps. You can take these steps and, they're not difficult to understand. They're not some kind of superior language that I can't understand. The difficulty becomes, am I willing to take the action indicated? And the willingness must come from that spiritual experience. And for those of us who didn't have the sudden transformation of our thinking as Bill did, it's more gradual, and it has to do with taking steps. I've come to the understanding that each step carries with it a particular spiritual experience. And as I process through the steps, then I pile these experiences one on top of the other, and by the time I get to step 12, it talks about having had a spiritual experience, a spiritual awakening, as the result of these steps. And so the end result of taking the steps is a spiritual awakening. To me, that's a promise. It's a guarantee that if I take these steps and follow the directions as outlined in the book, by the time I get to step 12, I will have had a spiritual awakening. And having that spiritual awakening allows me to have a message to carry to the new alcoholic, the new person who's coming in. And a lot of the meetings that I attended in California where I got sober would finish the meeting with the last few paragraphs of the chapter entitled A Vision for You. And in there it says, obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody who has not yet completed their steps can't be helpful to a newcomer. That's not what I'm saying at all. But to be of maximum value, I have to have the experience, the experiential knowledge of having taken these steps. And the only way to get that is to take the steps. There are several places in the book where I talk about being a program of action. In one place it says action and more action. And so as I, it took me a long time to get willing. I have to qualify that briefly. I became willing when there was nowhere else for me to go. When I was at a state of desperation that said, you've got to do something. I had no idea what that was. Other than having been sent to Alcoholics Anonymous, I knew there was something here that might be helpful. And it was only by that desperation that I became willing to take the steps. Because that's where recovery is. And the first step, which was the most difficult for me, I had to admit to being powerless over alcohol. Life was unmanageable. And even though my life was a wreck, it was very difficult for me to admit that my life was unmanageable. After all, I still had a car to drive, I still had a job, I still had a place to live. That bankruptcy and homelessness came later, after I was sober for a while. And to be powerless over anything went completely against everything I'd ever learned in my life. Completely opposite from what I've been taught. You are the master of your destiny. You can do anything you want to do. Put your mind to it. And I guess that's okay for people that are alcoholics. I don't know. But it didn't work very well for me. However, it took me, I had to sustain an emotional beating in order to be able to admit that. Step 2 brought me a little bit of hope, because it talks about coming to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I wasn't quite ready to admit to being insane, but I knew there was something wrong with me. But I considered that perhaps if this power existed, and I did believe that God was there, and if I could determine a way to tap into that power, then maybe being powerless of my own free will maybe isn't such a bad thing after all. Then it came to step 3. And here I'm asked to make a decision to do something that I have no idea how to do. Turn my will and my life over to the care of God. How do you do that? What does that even mean? discovered that if I continue on with the steps, that the next 4 steps teach me how to implement the decision that I made in step 3. And I've since discovered that it's necessary for me to renew that decision on a daily basis, every day. I have to renew that decision of step 3. Now, how well I am able to practice that process varies from one day to the next. Some days I do pretty well with it, other days not so much. But I still make the decision. That's what I need to do, that's what I want to do. And so this meeting tonight was all about introducing us to the foundational ideas that make Alcoholics Anonymous what it is, and give it the power that it has. But if this is all if this is as far as we go, it's not much use. And so in step 3, where it says this step will have little lasting effect unless followed at once with a thorough house cleaning or something to that effect. And I would say the same thing about this foundation. This is a great beginning, but it won't last if it's not followed up with the actual taking of the steps and implementing the ideas that are embodied in the steps into a program of living. Somewhere in the book it describes this program I designed for living. So I have to learn how to live in this world that is filled with temptations and aggravations and things that disturb our serenity. Yet by the practice of these steps and continuation of this process, it is possible to live a serene life in spite of all of that. I know that's possible because I've experienced it. May not be there every day and all day long, but it's there. And I know it's there. And I know how to get it. So for anybody that's just starting out, I encourage you to don't stop here. Move on to the rest of the steps. And to Kenny, who was left, I was hoping he'd stick around for a minute. But what I discovered in the area of carrying the message, what we call 12-step work, that the measure of success in working with others is not how many others get sober, stay sober, but have I stayed sober? That's the measure of success. Because in the beginning of that chapter, working with others, it talks about the most effective way to guarantee against the first drink is to work with another alcoholic. And it calls it intensive work with another alcoholic. So the purpose of carrying the message to the next person is to help them, yes. But more importantly, is to keep me sober, which is something that my sponsor used to tell me all the time, and I didn't understand it until I had a chance to practice it. For sobriety, I would call him several times a week with some kind of problem that I needed to discuss with him. And he never refused to talk to me. Whether it was meet him at a meeting or over the phone, or he'd invite me out to his house, or somehow or another we would discuss whatever it was I needed to talk about. And at the end of our discussions, it was my practice to thank him for taking time out of his busy day to talk to me. He always said, "No, I need to thank you, because by coming to talk to you tonight, I get to stay sober another day." That's the main purpose of carrying the message, is to keep me sober.
Thank you, Art. I think we should pray out before there's no one left to pray out with. And as we generally do here at Primary Purpose, we will virtually circle up with our virtual hands and take a moment for those who are still sick and suffering, and close out with the Lord's Prayer. And thank you to everyone for being here. Here's your moment. Thank you. And who will take us from shame to grace if we let him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thanks for staying up with us, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely.